Story 1. The other woman sent me a connection request on LinkedIn. Once I approved it, she messaged me. Wild choice, girl. Story 2. I saw my then girlfriend texting a female friend of ours throughout the night. I thought nothing of it since we were all close. However, I worked with this friend. The next day at work, I asked her what they were talking about all night. The confused blank stare in response revealed everything. Why would you pick someone I work with as the fake name for your affair partner? What a mistake. Story 3. My ex blocked the girl and her husband on all my social media without me knowing. So the husband, bless his persistent soul, made an account and then found and messaged me on Pinterest of all things. Story 4. Scrolling through his phone for pictures for his funeral. He messed around but is dead, so I guess he found out. Story 5. After vacation, I saw she had a video of her being intimate with someone she had been dating only a week before our vacation. She later admitted to being with a total of 4 people, though there is irrefutable evidence of more. Story 6. Watched her walk him out of her place one morning when I was coming by to bring her breakfast before she went to work. Story 7. After breaking up with my partner, I found out from friends that he had a long-standing weekly hookup called Fat Terry Thursdays. I hope he is now living the life he deserves. Story 8. He was out of work again. I went to work, and when I got back to the apartment we shared, there were 2 plates in the sink and traces of takeout leftovers. The amount of food consumed was more than he could have eaten alone. We had a favorite Chinese place, and I knew the order size. That was my first clue. I checked his phone, and it was a tale as old as time. Story 9. Got off work early one day and literally walked in on them having sex in the bed I bought. Sounds like something that only happens in the movies, but no, it happens in real life too. Came very close to going to prison that night. Story 10. Came back to my place with the man she was cheating on me with because she read my schedule wrong and thought I was working an overnight shift that night. She then asked if it was okay for me to leave because she did not want to go back to her place since it was late and she did not want to wake up her roommate. Story 11. Checked her phone after taking her out for her birthday dinner. My gut was telling me something was wrong. She had cheated that morning with a coworker, and they had been reliving it and flirting all day. She moved out 2 weeks later. Over a decade of marriage with children gone. That was a few years ago. She has been non-existent in our lives since then, and we have been better for it. Story 12. He said his stomach hurt, so he was going to sleep on the couch instead of in our bed. He was texting his affair partner from the couch but forgot his smartwatch on the bedside table, so I was able to see her replies in real time. Story 13. When our daughter was in the hospital really unwell, I was about 4 hours away from home with her. I called him, begging for his help, but he kept saying to just stay there, that it would be fine and that he had to work. My gut instinct kicked in, and when I eventually got back home 2 days later, I checked our joint phone bills. I saw a number he was calling at obscure times. Long story short, he was staying in a hotel with a girl he went to school with while our daughter was in the hospital. I lost about 16 kilograms in a month from stress. It was awful. Story 14. She got angry when I said I was coming to a girls' trip, as all the other girls were bringing their boyfriends or husbands, and she did not want me to come. Story 15. On a Saturday morning, my partner, whom we will call Rose, told me she had to work. This was not unusual, as she normally worked 1 to 2 Saturdays a month. She left at about 8 a.m. for her workday. At around 10 a.m., I decided to drive across the city to visit family. While en route, I realized I did not have enough gas and exited the highway to a random gas station. As I was pumping gas, I saw Rose exit a vehicle that was not hers. I approached the vehicle and saw a male in the passenger seat. I tapped on the window and said, "Hi, who are you?" He looked at me and said, "Oh my, you're Rose's best friend. She's told me so much about you. I'm her boyfriend. It's so nice to meet you." Too shocked to speak, I stood there in silence. He then said, "Yeah, she has shown me pictures of you too. It's so nice to finally meet her bestie." It turned out they were on their way to a nearby beach town to spend the day. Story 16. He decided to tell me about it months after our breakup. For reasons that seemed unrelated but were actually very related, because he wanted to be sure that we were starting with a clean slate if we got back together, which I refused. I should have known about it about a year earlier while we were long distance. During a FaceTime call, I saw the girl in question wearing one of his hoodies, then looking very guilty after taking it off. That, combined with him constantly asking if I was lying about my whereabouts or directly asking if I was cheating, was clearly a projection. I am very upset with Nathan. Story 17. He had a new credit card, and I innocently asked him when he got it. I did a little digging and found that he was using that new card to fund his affair. Story 18. The wife of the person my ex was cheating with messaged me because his phone was synced to their 2-year-old's iPad, and she was seeing their messages. They were also meeting during work hours, using their work phones and work vehicles to do whatever they were doing. The wife sent me all messages and photos. I filed for divorce. Honestly, I really hope that man's wife gets full custody of their child. Story 19. He told me straight up that it was because I was not putting out enough. Like, in what universe does this result in more intimacy for you? Because it is not this one. More than 20 years later, I still block him every time he tries to contact me. Story 20. I kissed him after he brought me flowers and dinner to work, and he tasted unusual. I asked him if he had already eaten dinner, and he said no. I found out the next week that he had been with my best friend right before coming to my job to drop off the gifts. She told me in a sad attempt to reconcile out of guilt. I ended the relationship with both of them immediately and never looked back. I regret the thought of being intimate with him. I trust no one now. Story 21. I had a gut feeling about a new woman who started working with us and joined our friendship group. She was married, but that didn't quell my instincts. I went through his phone and found suspicious messages between them, which he dismissed as quotes from a movie. I let it slide because I knew he was going traveling soon and our relationship was going to end anyway. A year later, I ran into her husband. They were getting divorced. He told me he found out she had been sleeping with my ex. My only regret is that I wasn't the one who ended things. They are still together years later, and they both know I know, despite vehemently denying it every time they were confronted. Story 22. I was helping him fix his computer but forgot what was wrong with it. While looking through his deleted pictures, I found nude photos. I confronted him and he told me about the cheating. I left him after that but stayed involved for a while until I found out he had started paying for sex with escorts. Story 23. I used her phone and scanned the desktop WhatsApp quick response code so that when she messaged people or anyone messaged her, it would show up in real time on my laptop. Then I sat back and watched in horror as they sent each other sexually explicit messages while she was sitting a foot away from me. Each one of those little bouncing ellipses was worse than the one before. Story 24. We split. A few months later, I went to his house and saw a 1-year anniversary card from his girlfriend. Story 25. He suddenly started acting extra sweet, going out of his way to spend more time with me and do things for me. Looking back, I think he just felt guilty. He was sitting next to me while I played Terraria on the PC, watching Netflix on his phone. I looked over just in time to see a messenger notification with his full name and "has one new message," which immediately made me uncomfortable because I knew Messenger usually said, "You have one new message," unless you are not logged in. On a hunch, I asked him to click on the notification to humor me. Suddenly, he did not know the password. "Well, I am on your PC right here. What if I log in here?" "Oh look, it is that account. The password is saved to Google." It was every ex he has ever had. He was asking anyone and everyone to meet up and sleep with him. One of them was a transgender woman he treated poorly when he found out she was not biological, who almost accepted his offer until I messaged her on his account letting her know he was actually in a relationship and we had just celebrated our first anniversary. She told me, "Men are not reliable, girl. I am sorry that is happening." The worst part was he would not confess for days, kept trying to lie his way out of it. It was an old enemy of his trying to sabotage him. It was not him sending those messages. He swore on his still alive parents' graves. It was not until I worked together with another one of the girls that rejected him that we got him to admit it was him. Then his sister called me a bitch for leaving him. I do not care. She is the worst parent and a dishonest person I have ever met. Story 26. checked his phone. He didn't really care about that breach of trust since our relationship clearly had no trust anyway. Story 27. The guy she was cheating on me with texted me from her number, introducing himself as her boyfriend and saying that they have been dating for months. Story 28. I caught him sexting a woman over 50 years old on Instagram, and he insisted it was only jokes and banter. He tried to manipulate me and blamed me for never asking if he was sexting someone on Instagram, so he said it was my fault. He was 40 and I was 26. Not my proudest phase. Story 29. I had to use his email to send myself something from his laptop. I found many OnlyFans subscriptions. I thought it was spam until I clicked into the email and saw you could manage account preferences. He had an account where he was actively sexting sex workers and paying for messages and photos. His credit card was linked. I confronted him. He did not admit to anything else at that stage until I asked to look at his phone a few days later and found Instagram direct messages confirming he went to a female friend's place to hook up about a year earlier. Then, upon intense questioning, he finally admitted he had been cheating throughout our 4-year relationship with random hookups, dates, pretending to be single, and frequently using dating apps. Story 30. I was driving to my friend's house and saw her car out of the corner of my eye. I knew her ex lived nearby but was shocked it was literally one street over. I called her to ask if she could find something I left in her car. She came outside, saw me, and that was it. Story 31. When I saw them go up, up, down, down, left, right, I did not need to see any more. I knew what they were doing. Story 32. My ex and I owned a small business. She would open and I would close at night. One night, she left her laptop on, and her email was logged in. Being curious, I decided to take a look. I found 2 years' worth of emails between her and the man she was having an affair with. I forwarded all of the emails to my email address, printed them out, and had them bound in a nice binder. When things finally ended between us and we were talking with a divorce lawyer, I handed copies of the binder to my ex and the lawyer. The divorce only cost me $300. Story 33. My gut knew before he confessed. It knew he was going to do it. Then one day, when he was traveling for work and stopped responding to my messages, which was not unusual by itself, it knew he was doing it. It was like a sudden sinking flip and electricity spreading to my nerve endings. When he confessed, my first words were something like, I knew it. The rational side of me still couldn't believe or grasp that he would do this in our marriage. We had a lot of fun together, and it's not like he was unsatisfied in bed between me and the pornography addiction. Still, the absolute first things he did were minimize it by saying, it was just sex, and make pathetic excuses like, we've both been miserable for a long time. Story 34. So I guess she kind of told me from the beginning but was sneaky about it. She told me she wrote a lot collaboratively with people online and often wrote not safe for work content with them. As a writer, I didn't think much of this and clarified with her that it wasn't sexting. I figured it was fine. I write a lot, share with my friends, and sometimes there's discussion of not safe for work scenes. It's pretty divorced from any kind of horniness in my experience. It's a lot like artistic nudity the way I write it, so I figured we were on the same page. A few months in, she told me she cut contact with those people after our relationship became serious because she felt weird about it. I asked why, and she told me that she was being pressured to do things she didn't want to do with those people, but she assured me she didn't. She just tolerated their advances without engaging because she didn't know how to say no. I said, okay, I'm glad you cut them off. It's hard to lose friends like that. Then, a few more months later, about a year and a half into our relationship, I remember we were watching a movie, and she laughed really hard at a post someone sent her. I asked to see it, and she showed me. I was like, that's funny. Who sent it to you? We had a lot of mutual friends, and I knew all of hers. So when she told me, just a friend, immediately, for whatever reason, alarm bells in my intuition went off, and I asked her, oh, which friend? Somehow, it spiraled from there to where I found out she had been sexting those people from before, exchanging nude photos, and kept contact with them after she told me she didn't, as well as having other online affairs with other people. Story 35. I walked up behind her to give her a hug and kiss her neck. As I brought my head around her shoulder, her phone buzzed. I glanced at it and saw a man's name with the message, "I miss you, princess." When I questioned her about the text and the man, she smashed her phone into pieces so I couldn't read the messages between them. I left her place and never spoke to her again. Story 36. Does emotional cheating count? He was secretly in contact with his ex and somehow she convinced him to go back to her. He called me one day and said, "I have been talking to my ex. I still have feelings, and we are back together." I felt so betrayed, but now a week later, those two can live a toxic life. I dodged a bullet. It still hurts being discarded, but it says more about him than me how this went down. Story 37. Garbage Man number 1's secret boyfriend texted me. I walked in on Garbage Man number 2 getting spit roasted. Neither of them were really garbage men. It turned out they were just trash. Story 38. We were at home. I was gonna run out to do some shopping. About 5 minutes out, I realized I had forgotten my wallet. I went back for the wallet. She was in the shower but had left her phone open because she did not know I was coming back. There was a text message chain with a man. He sent a nude picture asking if she missed it. And she responded, "Can't wait to see you again." Story 39. She never admitted to it, but I had her cold on the couple of times I knew of. I am absolutely sure there were many others. It really bothered me that she never admitted to it. She did not want to break up either. In the end, I told her I could not do this anymore. I felt like such a loser for a very long time. Story 40. I had suspected that something was going on with this girl but was not able to confirm until he disappeared overnight and said he was out drinking with friends. She posted a bunch of pictures. In one, I was certain she was wearing his coat. I noticed some logos on the wall behind her and eventually matched them to a brewery about an hour from our house. I checked the GPS and noticed there was a hotel next door. I called the front desk and was able to confirm his booking from that night by pretending I was double charged. The surprise was that he was a college coach who gave private lessons and had trained her when she was in high school a few years prior. Somehow, I forgave him and stayed for 2 more years until I found out he had unblocked her. They're together now. Story 41. I went on vacation by myself, and one night, right before falling asleep, I suddenly felt it. It was his birthday, so I knew he was out, but out of nowhere, I had this overwhelming gut feeling that he was sleeping with someone else. No doubt in my mind. Later, when the truth came out, I talked to the girl he did it with, a mutual friend, and she confirmed the exact timeline. It happened literally at the moment I felt it. Insane. Looking back, there were red flags. He kept accusing me of wanting to sleep with other people, which now just feels like projection. During my trip, none of my friends were really responding to me. Everyone seemed off and avoidant. It just made me feel even more sure that something had happened and no one wanted to tell me. The moment I was really sure, and when it was truly confirmed, was when I got back from my vacation and saw my best friend. I looked at her and could tell right away that she knew something. So I said, "If you don't tell me what I already know, and I find out you knew and didn't say anything, we're done. We can't be friends." She told me everything. After that, all my friends came clean and apologized. They said they were waiting for me to come back to tell me. I can't tell you how, but I knew it. Story 42. I heard them in the room next to me. Married 10 years, 2 kids, and we were on vacation in Austin so he could socialize with Aubrey Marcus. We stayed at Onnit's Airbnb and went out with that whole crew. I felt so uncomfortable, so I left the bar after my husband, now ex, screamed at me. I texted him while in the Uber back to the Airbnb, "Have fun. I don't care what you do." He took that to mean he was free to hook up with the girls in that group. What I meant was I didn't care if he came back to the Airbnb with me. When they got back, they started partying downstairs. So I put on some clothes and was going to join them to show I'm not a total stick in the mud. But as I was about to walk downstairs, I heard them cheering him on to make out with one of the women. I peeked down to confirm what I heard, and sure enough, he was making out with 2 of the girls. Gross. So I cried in bed. Then I heard him and one of the girls go into the room next to mine, and I heard them having sex. I texted him an hour or so into it saying, "We have a flight to catch. Please stop and pack your bags." I was so disgusted. We broke up, And about a month later, I went out with some girlfriends to get my mind off things. I met a 6'7" professional rugby player, an absolute unit. He was so kind, the sweetest man I have ever dated. When my ex found out, it ruined him. I was thrilled when he saw who it was. Forget that guy forever. I would like to add that this was during the most attractive, confident period of my life. I was fit, sexually insatiable, my skin was glowing, and people were intimidated by my presence. I didn't realize it at the time, but I've had people tell me later on. He fumbled hard. My kids hate him. Story 43. Not me, but my brother-in-law was cheating on his wife with his cousin's wife. My wife was talking to his wife, and she told her that she found inappropriate pictures of a woman on their home computer. She did not know the cousin well or how to contact him, so I helped. I did some investigation. I created a fake Facebook account and checked my brother-in-law's page. I found pictures of the woman and her profile page. I found her daughter and other family members. I started sending them messages to let them know what she was doing. This led me to the husband's profile page. I got his email and sent him the pictures. Within a week, the wife was confronted, and both her family and her husband's family knew what was going on. I don't know if they are still together, but last I heard, they were going to their church counselor and attending therapy. My brother-in-law and his wife separated, and he has not talked to me or my wife. My wife still loves him, but she is used to cutting people out of her life. Story 44. Turns out tattoo artists do not give out free tattoos to build their portfolio. It was just another unpleasant man who hit on her at her job. She disliked when that happened to her. Bullet dodged. Story 45. She turned off her Life 360 status that her dad had us all on. One night, she went drinking with her female college student friend. I texted to ask when she'd be home and got no response. At 1 a.m., I drove to the wine bar where she was supposed to be. Her car was there, but she was not. She finally texted back at 1:30 a.m. after I returned home and turned on her location. She acted strangely for 2 weeks until I confronted her about it, and then she left me and our 3 kids. She gaslighted me for weeks while living with her adult daughter from her first marriage, which ended when she cheated on him with me. She said I was being mean to her and filed for divorce. She acted like the divorce was only a possibility and might not go through with it, stringing me along, thinking we'd reconcile. But she went through with the divorce despite my attempts to talk it out. All this happened between February and May. We talked in July as new co-parents because she was actually getting our kids once again. She said she was seeing someone. Not only was she seeing someone, she acted cagey and admitted she was engaged. A search of marriage. Records in our county showed she married the man in June, 2 weeks after our divorce was final. He was a friend of the female college student she went drinking with that night in February and met him then. I finally put it all together months after the fact. Story 46. I was on a video call with his sister on his phone. I saw a notification pop up from Tinder that a girl liked his picture. After that, I went through his phone while he was asleep, and my whole marriage unraveled. He had been cheating while we were dating and engaged. Story 47. My late partner had been out of the emergency room for alcohol withdrawal for a few months. I had been persistent about him going to the many doctors he was supposed to see after being released a week earlier. It had been some time since he was in the emergency room, and he was still yellow. He was passed out on the couch again. He always said he was tired. I checked his phone to see if he was really trying to get appointments like he said he was. I did not see anything like healthcare apps or browser history that suggested he was. I looked for messages with his closest friend and family member and found messages with an online girl, exchanged pictures, and messages going back a long time. I saw he was messaging her on the plane we took to see his family on my birthday, not a celebration for my birthday, but so he could visit his family. He was messaging her in the emergency room while I was taking care of him, so the nurses would not fully strap him to the bed. He was very belligerent and kept trying to leave to smoke or simply leave. He never apologized and claimed he was just making friends when I confronted him. He is dead now. I finally left him days before he died. After finding more alcohol, more lies, and he had taken the door handle off my car. After his death, I found he had messaged other women before I left and in the days after I was gone. Both married and unmarried women he knew, trying to find a new lifeline since I was no longer there. Story 48. The guy she worked with started liking all of her posts. I did some digging and saw the signs. I left before I got confirmation. A week later, he had her name tattooed on his hand. 2 months later, she was struggling to pay bills, and he was homeless. This seems to be the consequence of cheating on me. It is much more likely that they just make poor choices and always end up suffering for their constant mistakes. Some people just cannot learn. Story 49. My wife had been acting strangely for a year. She cut off intimacy and constantly picked fights with me. If the kids made her mad, she would turn on me, saying things like, "I'm not happy and haven't been for a long time." I started using DeepSeek artificial intelligence to try and figure out what was going on. I thought she was going through perimenopause or there was something wrong with her depression medication. The artificial intelligence said she was displaying textbook patterns of cheating. I didn't believe it. We had been together for 22 years, and I never had any reason to believe she was capable of that. In fact, the opposite. The more I used DeepSeek, the higher the probability of an affair became in its results. A week or two before Easter, she announced she was staying overnight at a female work friend's house. She had done that before. I assumed it was to get away from the stress of the kids. When I got home after she had left, I noticed her room smelled like perfume. With the artificial intelligence results in mind, I thought, why is she wearing perfume to her female friend's house overnight? Who is she trying to impress? On Easter Monday, I was searching the house because one of my kids had lost a toy and was upset. I saw her overnight bag stuffed under her bed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I looked through it. Inside were black lace panties, fishing lures of all things, and the clincher, a Valentine's card from a man. It was signed by a name I didn't recognize, but I knew immediately who it was because the card listed all the things she had done over the last year with the principal at her school. The worst part is there were 3 handmade Valentine's cards from my kids, hearts cut out of construction paper. They were in the same handwriting as the man's card and each was signed by one of my 3 boys. I asked my eldest who he made the card with, and he said the principal, who is 11 or 12 years older than my soon-to-be ex and also married. My soon-to-be ex-wife has inserted this man into my role as dad on multiple occasions. His card said, "The best part has been getting to know your boys. They went camping twice last summer, have gone on multiple fishing trips, and even after I revealed I knew about the affair and told her not to continue, she still does. They had a day at the lake with him earlier this month. It is a total violation. In the second week of June, I found months of their text messages on an old laptop. They upset me but confirmed everything. They met on weekends to have sex in the school's medical room bed, used school funds to attend conferences, and stayed in hotels together. We are in the early stages of divorce. She is refusing to move out and has taken no accountability. The closest she came was saying, 'I made a mistake. I fell in love after discovering that I had seen their texts, and if that information got out, it could ruin her career.' She only said that after confirming I was not recording her on my phone. It is all very scummy and unhinged. She is totally remorseless, and I am the bad guy, despite years of sacrificing myself so she could advance her career and I could be available for our kids whenever she was overwhelmed." Story 50. We talked all day every day, and then she did not respond for more than 24 hours. Her birthday was coming up, so I assumed her family threw her a party, which they did. However, I could not shake the feeling that she was hiding something. She confessed that her ex was invited by her family, who did not know about me. She proceeded to get drunk and ended up in bed with him. Story 51. It was all the little signs. New underwear, new perfume, wearing makeup, unexplained absences, and the most significant was hiding her phone. The phone was the biggest warning sign. If your partner does not let you look at her phone, you should end the relationship immediately. You will thank me later. Story 52. He dumped me out of the blue last November and immediately entered a new relationship. I found her Spotify, where she made a playlist for him named My King. One of the songs added was "We Fell in Love in October." Story 53. He deleted all of his social media profiles so she would not know that he was married. She found my profile through his mother's Facebook account and messaged me. Story 54. Yahoo Answers, when it existed, asking a question like, "Is it cheating if I plan to be with the other person anyway?" is a clear indication. Also, they entered a relationship about 4 days after my 7-year relationship ended. So, story 55. My child saw him messaging, "I'm so horny," and more while he was driving her home from school. She asked what he was doing, and he said he didn't know, that something popped up on Instagram and he clicked out, but immediately returned to it. She saw it wasn't Instagram, but Sniffies, looked it up, and realized it was a gay cruising app, and that he was making plans to meet up as soon as he dropped her home. She immediately told me because she's trustworthy. He still doesn't know this is how I found out. Story 56. I suspected for about a year before I found out because I had no proof. We hadn't been married very long, but it always seemed happy and solid until I got COVID-19 and almost didn't make it. It left me with permanent damage to my cardiovascular and nervous systems, among other things, and resulted in me having to leave work because I am mostly bedbound now. If you don't know what long COVID or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome are, look it up. I live in a daily nightmare now. All of this, of course, caused us immense financial stress. We decided together he would return to his home state for a good job offer that came up. The job he had paid minimally but was about the best we could hope for where we were, so it made sense to leave for a better job. The plan was for him to work, save, pay down some bills, find us a new place, and get settled while my parents offered to let me stay with them for free. Then I would join him after 6 months, hopefully on a better track. He completely changed once he left. We talked multiple times a day at first, but gradually he started dodging my phone calls, not responding to texts, and when I did get a hold of him, his whereabouts and behavior were always suspicious. I found out after he had been gone for 5 months that he hadn't saved any money, still had no housing established for him or us, and that he had just been partying his earnings away. He came clean about his behavior and said he was concerned he had a problem with alcohol. I almost left him over this dishonesty, but I was sensitive because he kept attributing his behavior to bad mental health and assured me he was sorry and would buckle down and do what he set out to do. Because I'm sensitive to the fact that my unforeseen illness is as hard on him as it is on me. His contact with me got better, and he seemed to be working hard, taking overtime and chilling out on spending. I'm a therapist by trade, so we spent many hours talking about what he did, why he coped with stress with alcohol, and just generally about his well-being and mental health. During these times, I did ask him a few times directly if he cheated and pointed to his behavior that seemed like cheating behavior, but he swore he would never do that and said it was just a bad mental health rough patch. It took a year for us to be together again after all the delay. I continued to battle health issues and some bruised trust, but I finally moved to his home state about 6 weeks ago, thinking we had everything behind us and could finally be together again. How I caught him out is a bit devious. After I moved here, my intuition just wouldn't stop telling me he cheated. I could have gone through his phone, but I've learned he can be crafty and felt it was pointless because I know he's smart enough to delete things and it's been a whole year anyway. His friends would never give anything away if they knew, so I knew asking around would be pointless. So one day when he got home from work, I admit I lied. I told him I got an anonymous message on Instagram from an unknown account saying he had cheated on me. I admit it wasn't healthy to lie like that, but I just wanted to see how he would react. And it worked. He must have thought he was really caught because he just caved and started crying and admitted he cheated on me with an ex-coworker he ran into at a bar. They fooled around for about 2 weeks, so he says. Then he felt so guilty he ghosted her. I wasn't shocked since my gut knew, but I was devastated that my life partner and best friend would wait until I was at my lowest in health and finances to betray me in the worst and dirtiest way. I just got that news a week ago. I'm in a different state away from my family, whom I am very close to. He's been telling me how sorry he is, saying he wasn't himself, and begging for another chance. He is in therapy. I spent the last week trying to figure out if I can forgive him or if I should get out of here and never look back. I know I need to make a decision, but I just feel frozen and defeated. and my chronic illness makes everything so much more difficult. I'm more furious he allowed me to move to a different state away from my support system before telling me the truth. I deserve to know this before I came because honestly, I wouldn't have come. Story 57. They both worked together at the job where we met, which I had since quit. He was a manager and she was his employee. About a week before, I saw the girl's name on Snapchat. A grown man, 25 years old, keeping streaks on Snapchat. He had lied about having her added, but insisted they were just friends. She was 18. I knew they had met up to study as they were in the same college class. I asked him to remove her on Snapchat and moved on with my life. Less than a week later, we were 45 minutes away at the mall when I received a direct message from her best friend telling me to check his phone because he had cheated multiple times. Stupidly, I showed him the message. He denied it and said they were probably trying to cause drama because he had removed this girl. I felt very uneasy about it but decided to trust him. When we got back to his place, he said, "There are some things I haven't been honest about." It turns out he had slept with her multiple times over the past few months. What really blew my mind was how he had lied about it just days before and had started an argument with me because I hadn't wanted them to hang out as friends. I did not react as harshly as I should have, and to be honest, I regret it. Story 58. Wife of 10 years was supposed to be on a girls' trip for the weekend. The man who dropped her off from the trip was not one of the girls. I kept my cool in the moment since my kids were there, and I'm proud of that, although my daughter thought I was having a heart attack. The other two women who were supposed to be on the trip lied to me to cover for my wife. A year and a half later, we are on pretty good terms, which is great for our ability to be good parents to the kids, but I am very much looking forward to finalizing our divorce. I was a good husband to her, I'm a great dad, and she had a pretty sweet deal for a long time. She's not happy her easy ride is coming to an end. Story 59. We were in the club. He was texting all the time saying he was talking to a guy friend. I grabbed his phone and put it away, saying, "Enjoy the moment." At that moment, his friend grabbed his shoulders and told me to look at the phone. I looked, and he was texting his other girlfriend. To this day, I am grateful for his friend. Such a precious human being. Story 60. I started having an itchy vagina along with a burning sensation whenever I urinated. A sore throat. I am severely immunocompromised, so any disease or infection is more likely to weaken my immune system than others, and other flu-like symptoms for a week. I also noticed a wart underneath my tongue, foul-smelling urine, a foul-smelling vagina in general, and yellowish, gooey discharge with a terrible odor. I went to urgent care and was diagnosed with a urinary tract infection. I also requested sexually transmitted infection tests, which I received but was told the results would not be available for 2 weeks. I was prescribed antibiotics for the urinary tract infection, and the doctor decided to prophylactically prescribe antibiotics for a possible sexually transmitted infection. Later, I discovered on his phone explicit photos and searches for gonorrhea, indicating he knew he had a sexually transmitted infection and was willing to hide it from me. The sexually transmitted infection results came back 2 weeks later, after I had already been treated with antibiotics. I had trichomoniasis. I also found out that he was cheating with a female supervisor at his job, who had been involved with many coworkers, and that this had been going on for an entire year, during which I was financially vulnerable after losing my job and struggling to find another. There were also 2 other women, including someone on Reddit, which coincided with the beginning of his emotional and physical abuse toward me. The antibiotics caused recurrent bacterial vaginosis, and my vaginal health is now permanently damaged. My vagina itches constantly, especially worsening around my menstrual period, and has a persistent fishy odor that I can smell in a confined space even if I keep my legs tightly closed and wear loose pants and underwear, regardless of using fragrance-free soap. Boric acid suppositories do not help. I am almost 30 years old, with about 10 combined sexual partners, and never had vaginal problems until meeting this person. I hope he faces the consequences of his actions. Story 61. This was 10 years ago with my current husband. He worked the night shift as a security guard at an empty building with a 19-year-old girl. He was 37. I had just had our son. He had planned a gold panning trip with a guy friend and was awaiting a text from him. It was late at night. He was asleep downstairs on the couch, and our son was in the rocker next to him because he was watching him that night so I could sleep. How sweet, right? He is always sweet. I came downstairs but can't remember why. I heard his phone buzz. I did not want it to wake him, so I quietly took it and checked the text, expecting it to be the guy friend getting back to him about the trip. I remember sitting on the stairs, looking at a text message from this girl. I honestly do not remember what it said. I still have post-traumatic stress disorder from it and have blocked out most of the memories. I opened the conversation between them, but all the texts were deleted. I did a text recovery, but it only brought up the first few words of each text. They texted all hours of the day and night. I think there were even phone calls. The text seemed innocent from the first few words I could read, except for two. The first said, "I had to shower after that." He said he wanted to see how fast he could do his patrol, so he was running around, got sweaty, and showered there. Recently, he told me he sent her a picture of his clothes on the ground. The next text that was not good was, "I will miss you all." This was when he got fired. An investigation was done based on some suspicions, but my husband said it was because his boss hated him and wanted an excuse to fire him. Camera footage was reviewed, and the report was sent to our house. The report stated that they disappeared for hours at a time. He said they were just patrolling, and there are no cameras anywhere, including the cafeteria. I said, "Wouldn't the report say you two went into the cafeteria for hours?" He said it was all lies and his boss wanted to get him fired. The report also said they were in a room, and he stuck his head out of the room and went back in. He swears on our son that nothing physical happened. He says he was flirty, but he did not like her. I do not care. That is still emotional infidelity in my book. Story 62. Back then, they had just released mobile phones with internet, very crude, but the Find My Phone app was significant. I bought a cheap mobile phone with prepaid internet and downloaded a Find My Phone app that sends the location after you text the password to that phone. I put it on silent and hid it in my stepmother's car. I told my dad to text the number whenever he wanted, and he would receive a GPS location of her car immediately. It took 5 days before she was caught lying, saying she was at work but was actually 45 minutes away at someone's house. Story 63. Before the internet, we lived in the country and commuted to work in the city. There was no unlimited long-distance calling. Every month, he complained about the phone bill, even though I called my family during off-peak hours. Then one month he said nothing, and the next month was the same. This continued for several months. I noticed he was becoming distant, spending more time at home alone while I took our infant to run errands in a nearby town, and keeping odd hours. I thought he was acting strange but couldn't figure out why. One night, while bathing our baby, I sang Itsy Bitsy Spider as she splashed in the tub. The children's song reminded me of the Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson movie Heartburn, where it was used in a scene. As I mindlessly washed my daughter, I replayed scenes in my head. One scene struck me. Meryl, pregnant with their second child, goes to the hairdresser's for a dinner engagement with Jack. She overhears a conversation between clients at the salon, becomes triggered, and races home with her hair undone to search her husband's desk before he arrives, discovering the truth. I pulled my daughter from the tub and carried her to the home office. I pulled the bill files out of the filing cabinet. Within 30 seconds, I saw the same unfamiliar phone number repeatedly. Calls made when I was not home. Credit card statements confirmed my suspicion. He was having an affair. I put the baby to bed, grabbed the bills, and walked into the family room to confront him. Before the internet, you had to wait for evidence, catch someone in public, or wait for a mistake. If the internet had existed in its current form, I would have discovered this months earlier. Story 64. He was a trial attorney. Of course, he was working late and had to meet a few potential clients at the International House of Pancakes next to a strip club, which was a low-grade establishment in a shady part of town. Those clients were also women who worked at the strip club. I went there because it was now 2 a.m., and I wondered where he was. I found him sucking a woman's toes in his truck at 3 a.m. He was under the influence of cocaine. I had him drive back home, followed him, and then called the police, who pulled him over in a church parking lot. I then contacted the bar association to report him to the ethics committee, and he was disbarred for 5 years. I also called his ex-wife and told her not to expect child support because of what I had done. She laughed because she had already filed for revocation of his parental rights due to his drug addiction. He had been driving their son around while under the influence of cocaine and alcohol, engaging in irresponsible behavior. He managed to get his license back in 1 year, supported by religious and political connections, but eventually died of an overdose. Story 65. She lost her phone, so I gave her my old one. She lost that too, so she was using my phone while we were hanging out. We were talking about moving in together. She brought it up, and I was very excited. I dropped her off and started getting Facebook Messenger notifications on my phone. She forgot to log out. The messages were visible on my lock screen. She was flirting and sexting with a wealthy man from Europe, whom she met when she wanted a break from me while we were hanging out and discussing moving in together. Story 66. Watched him type in his iPhone password. Went on his email, reset the password with the security question. Went on every dating site I could find and sent a password reset. He had been messaging other girls the whole time, even on my 18th birthday. He physically abused me several times, so I do not care about the breach of privacy. Story 67. 2 years later, we were having a conversation about infidelities. I said, "If I knew you cheated on me, I would not be able to forgive you and we would break up." She started crying. When I asked why, she said she could not tell me because I would break up with her. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.